I'll admit it. I'm a little jealous. You Christians have a psychic monopoly on those saccharine, fuzzy feelings. Your holidays get lovingly crafted movies to inspire out-of-focus, Prince of Tide-esque memories for a lifetime. At best, we Jews get a crazed Charlton Heston yelling at Yul Brynner. At worst, every Holocaust movie ever. Yeah, we made the Holocaust a holiday. But for most of my life, I fortunately have been shielded from the pain of Christmas movie absence by my jaded hippie parents. I got Harold and Maude instead of Miracle on 39th Street. Instead of some creepy kid with glasses obsessing with a BB gun, my holiday movies involved Harrison Ford punching people in the face. Yes. However, I've started living with a Christmas fanatic. The gaudy trees, Michael Bublé, Christmas CDs, cords of holiday wrapping paper, miles of Christmas lights. She even bought me a Lego advent calendar. I'm still not quite sure what an advent calendar is, but free Legos. Recently, she decided it was a Shonda, or whatever the Christian version of Shonda is, that I've never seen the Burl Ives classic, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I feel I owe it to the public to give a full, objective review of the movie. I'm told the narrator is the snowman Burl Ives. I think I'm supposed to know who Burl Ives is, so I simply say wow and hide my shame. The only time I've lived in a place with snow was a big city, so all the snowmen I've seen were frozen gray slush monsters. I don't know why you'd want that as a narrator. So now we move on to meeting our characters. We see Mrs. Claus telling her husband Santa Claus, "Eat, Papa, eat." I do feel heartened to see the director is willing to show a little eroticism in what I assume to be a children's movie. Next, we get to meet his helpers, the elves. It becomes obvious there's a deeply corrupt working relationship up at the North Pole. The boss elf hurls abuse at his hard-working elves, who, by the way, are the only ones that do any actual labor, while Santa, the silent plutocrat, just looks on. Papa's certainly eating, and it ain't just Mama, but the rights of his diminutive proletariat. Apparently, Marx never got north of the 90th parallel. However, I do wholeheartedly approve of the boss elf's discouragement of Hermie. Hermie is a different elf. Instead of aspiring to be a toy maker, he dreams of being a dentist. A dream he unleashes upon others by waving around a pair of tongs, its size and cruel shape something any inquisitor would envy. Anything that can be done to discourage a pumpkin-headed creature obsessed with extracting teeth is the first line of defense against all my childhood nightmares coming to life. Bravo! Then we are introduced to our titular hero and his family, Rudolph, his father Donner, and his mother, Mrs. Donner. Seriously, I checked IMDb. Her name is Mrs. Donner. The North Pole seems less and less winter wonderland, more misogynistic, feudal, frozen hellhole. Now, for those who are unaware, Rudolph is born with an odd birth defect, a red nose that glows and gives off a humming noise when aroused. That's what the humming's about, right? Arousal? Yeah. But now Mrs. Donner loves her new fawn, but Donner seems to disapprove of the new imperfect child. I was torn on how to feel about this. I have to ask myself, are these simply talking reindeer or reindeer with human minds? Now, if simply reindeer, Mom and Dad need to do the right thing and let this little freak die of exposure before his weakness gets the whole herd killed. However, if more human, fuck you, Dad. Right in the heart. You're a monster, and I hope you catch your best friend blowing Rudolph in 20 years. Now, as time passes, we discover Rudolph has a talent for flying, but is ostracized for his very visible shortcoming. Upon meeting Hermie, who has been rightly punished for his disturbing behavior, they decide the best option is to run away and make it on their own. Normally, we would call this a symptom of Arctic madness, perhaps due to a vitamin D deficiency. Yet, we are led to believe this is some kind of a romp, an adventure. I'm starting to believe this movie is trying to get the viewer killed. On their journey, the two misfits meet the major villains of the story, the Bumble and Yukon Cornelius. The Bumble is a large polar anthropoid that is an object of terror to all the inhabitants of the North Pole. And Yukon Cornelius is a fat, loud, greedy miner. The movie seems to imply that the Bumble is some kind of boogeyman that should be reviled instead of what he actually is, an apex predator in the delicate Arctic environment. Let's take a step back before we demonize the Bumble. Rudolph, you're a fucking deer. Yukon Cornelius, as a human, you are an invasive species, and as a minor, place a huge strain on the ecosystem. And Hermie, your existence is a mockery of all that is good and decent. Now, throughout the chase, Rudolph takes the blame for bringing the wrath of the Bumble down upon the group, as Rudolph's red nose would attract him. Any biologist would tell you, with the limited visibility of a polar ecosystem, land predators rely mostly on hearing and scent to hunt their prey. Yet oddly, the fat, loud, and clearly smelly miner remains silent as Rudolph verbally flays himself. Apparently, Yukon Cornelius also likes to mine for tears. After fleeing the Bumble and their proper fates, the trio finds themselves on the island of misfit toys. I don't get it. What qualifies a toy as a misfit? Wouldn't a child rather have the wonderment of an elephant with spots than a regular gray elephant? Who doesn't want a lion with wings and a crown, also known as the magnificent King Moonracer? Are you such a purist, little Timmy? Or are you simply the kind of child who makes sure those people use the colored drinking fountain? Frankly, most of these toys are a delight. They should take pride in that, and the island name should reflect it. There is one notable exception, however, the Charlie in the Box. Charlie claims he is on the island because he's not a Jack-in-the-Box, but a Charlie in the Box. I've been to the rodeo. That story's bullshit. It's pretty obvious that Charlie is a brutal Seven-style thrill killer whose voice is a product of a testicle being crushed by one of his victims before they died of sheer terror. The fact that something as majestic as Moonracer allows itself to be anywhere near Charlie is a glaring plot hole. Now, as the trio bed down on the island, Rudolph, still stinging from Yukon Cornelius' cruelty, runs away. This being Rudolph's second irresponsible disappearance, we learn that Donner and Mrs. Donner have gotten lost searching for Rudolph, and it appears Yukon Cornelius and Hermie will be the latest victims. Rudolph, in a strange sense of filial duty, searches for his lost family, who we learn is in the cave of the Bumble. Now, being in this cave is supposedly a bad thing. Again, apex predator versus still living venison. I'm not surprised the polar bear is now endangered. But suddenly, Hermie and Yukon Cornelius show up to thwart the natural order. Again, in the most horrifying way possible. Hermie proceeds to pull every one of the Bumble's teeth without anesthesia, giving the viewer a glimpse at the monster growing inside the little elf. Cornelius, now driven mad with bloodlust, starts mercilessly beating the poor, crippled creature, sending Cornelius and the Bumble both over a cliff. The reindeer and the elf/Ed Gein analogy make their way back home, where ever-slick Santa throws Rudolph a bone by allowing him to guide his sleigh. I am impressed at how the director showed so deeply the psychological trauma of Rudolph, as he practically pees himself with pride over being allowed to help his tormentors. All of a sudden, Yukon Cornelius reappears with the hobbled and broken Bumble in tow. In his obnoxious cock of a voice, Cornelius lets us know the Bumble is doomed to a life of merciless humiliation and complete dependence on his captors/tormentors. In the final scene, we see Santa coming to pick up the misfit toys to be delivered to that little racist shit Timmy and whatever his slack-jawed relations are named. This, I must say, is an excellent cliffhanger. We know that Charlie in the Box is now out there again, with the resources of the North Pole behind him, sowing his terror anywhere good little boys and girls may live. Am I blaming the movie for the destruction of the environment, massive trauma to children, the dehumanization of one's enemies, and needless violence? Yes, I am. By the way, Holocaust Memorial Day is going to be on April 19th next year. Merry Christmas.
Sam Carr, everybody.